We're going to take some time and talk about the new self-registration process that Project Broadcast launched, why you have to go through the registration process, and really what it is. And we'll take time to actually step through the process itself through Project Broadcast. I'll share my screen. We'll take a look at the process. I've got some kind of commonly asked questions that we've seen that have come through our support and we've seen on Facebook over the last couple of days. So we'll make sure to get those answered for you as well. Um, we've got Project Broadcast team members that are on the Facebook Live and also on the YouTube Live that are going to help answer questions. If you have questions, to type in the comments. I'm not going to be looking at those comments. I'm going to try to go through the kind of process of explaining registration, showing you the registration process itself in Project Broadcast, and answering those common questions. And our team will be on the comments, actually answering questions there for you. So let's first just spend a few minutes and talk about like what is this and why do I have to do it? The TCR is this new entity that was added to the texting ecosystem. It actually was added a few years ago, and um, hang on one second. It's saying it's not showing on YouTube. Oh well, we'll have to just use a Facebook. Um, anyway, the TCR came to be a few years ago through the mobile carriers. They decided they wanted to get rid of these things called shared short codes, and they effectively would just wanted to know who's sending messages that are commercial in nature. You hear us use this word commercial in nature, and commercial in nature just means it's about a business. So if you're a small business owner in network marketing or direct sales, you're sending commercial messages. If you're a landscaper who mows yards, you're sending commercial messages. Commercial messages just means messaging about a business, right? So carriers decided they wanted to know specifically who the people are that are sending commercial messages to their customers, and if they're sending those messages, what are the messages and how are you receiving opt-in and how do you handle opt-out? So the TCR was brought into the picture as this new entity in the kind of telco space. And the requirements for registering as a sender have changed over the last couple of years. They continue to evolve. It's a space that is continuing to evolve, and I'm confident there'll be more changes in the future that come down that may or may not require you to actually do anything in Project Broadcast. So that's why we have it. Is it required? Yes, it's required. Today, when you send a message, if it's unregistered traffic, that is called gray route traffic. That is kind of the industry term. And all that means is someone sending messages who isn't yet registered. That's what that stands for. And gray route traffic is actually going away August 31st. So, August 31st, if you have gray route traffic, meaning unregistered traffic, so you haven't gone through this process, your messages will be blocked. So, is it required? Absolutely. And then post August 31st, when someone signs up for Project Broadcast, they won't be able to send any messages until their registration has been completed and approved. So the fact that you're already a Project Broadcast gives you a leg up, because since there is gray route traffic still, even when you register and your registration is in a pending status, you'll still be able to send messages because that gray route traffic is currently allowed. The important thing is that you get through the registration process and get approved before the August 31st deadline. And the best way to do that is just go ahead and get into Project Broadcast and fill out that form. So, a common question we get is it required? It is. It's actually required for any platform like Project Broadcast that is sending commercial traffic through 10DLC, and that just means real phone number, into the telephone network. So all providers have to do this. We have built, what we feel like is a streamlined process to help you through the registration process. And again, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through the actual process, and I'll try to answer questions about each screen that I've seen come up. So some folks are saying they don't see the registration process. So if you're still using what we call the classic UI, actually, I'll share my screen real quick. I think I have a classic UI open. So if this is the UI that you're seeing, that is what we call classic UI. And you'll notice over in the right, it tells you about Project Broadcast has got some new duds. If you click that, it's going to go to the new user experience. Now, that new user experience has been live for almost a month, I believe, on web, much shorter for mobile. I think it's been live about 2 weeks for mobile. Um, Start using that version because probably in the next week or so, we will be fully sunsetting the classic UI. We were going to do it earlier this month and decided to prolong that. So this classic version of Project Broadcast is going away. So if you aren't seeing the registration information, it's probably because you're still either in the classic version of Project Broadcast or you just haven't updated the app in your app store. So make sure to go to the App Store on your Apple device or your Android device, update your Project Broadcast app. You'll get the new registration workflow as a part of that. Let me pop over to the new UI. So in the new user interface, when you first log in, I'm going to refresh to kind of simulate me, initially logging in. When you first log into Project Broadcast, you are going to get this TCR registration form. Now, it isn't required that you fill it out today. You'll notice I've got the X in the top left. I can close this if I want to. If you do decide to close this and not go through that process today, just again, keep in mind, you need to go through the process and be approved before August 31st, because that is when your traffic will start to be blocked for not being registered. But if you do close it, in the left-hand menu of Project Broadcast, you'll see a banner that says registration required. This also shows in our mobile application. And if you click registration required, it takes you to the process to start registration. So we've talked a little bit about what the campaign registry is. It's a third-party entity where you have to register who you are and what you are sending. And all mobile carriers are now requiring all commercial senders, again, any sender sending messages about business, to register through this third-party entity. I'm just going to start the process and I'll answer questions as I kind of read through this that I've seen pop up. The first part of this is just explaining that there's really two options. You can either register as a sole proprietor or a private company. So a common question we've gotten is, which do I choose? And it's a great question. For most people, if you're a single owner business and, again, you're a landscaper, you're in network marketing, direct sales, you sell necklaces on Etsy, if you're a single person business, and even if you're in something like network marketing, direct sales, that's technically still a business. You're a consultant, you're, consultant for an organization. You most likely want to choose sole proprietor. Sole proprietor is I want to use the word easy, but I'm going to put that in quotation marks. It's the easy way to get registered. Now, there are some things to keep in mind for sole proprietor. There are throughput limitations. We have that, designated here for both registration types, but there's nothing you need to do in Project Broadcast about that throughput. I've seen a couple questions of, oh, do I need to change the way I send messages? No. Project Broadcast has always throttled your traffic into the carrier network to make sure that you abide by the guidelines that the telcos have in place. So even if you register as a sole prop or register as a private company, we will manage that on your behalf. If you want to schedule a message to 1,000 people, do it. We will manage making sure if you're a sole prop, only 15 messages a minute are released into the carrier network to make sure you abide by that compliant throughput limitation. Okay. So there's nothing you need to do there. So sole prop is I'm a single owner business. And even if you have an EIN, you may want to do a sole prop just because it's the easy path for registration. You will, and we'll see this in a future screen, you'll have to fill out information about who you are, what your address is, what's your mobile phone number. And I'm going to go through those screens and show you those as well. The other option is registering as a private company. So a private company would be maybe I'm a bakery and I've got an EIN and I send messages to my customers. I may want to register with my EIN, and an EIN is a number given to you by the government when you register a business like an LLC. In Canada, it's called a business number. So if you do not have an EIN or business number, if you're in Canada, the answer is very easy. You register as a sole prop. If you have an EIN, you have the option to register as a private company. The thing that you just have to be aware of is that the private company registration does carry additional scrutiny. And what that means is when you fill out the private company information, it's going to ask you things like, what is your EIN? What is your business address? What is the name of the company? And all of those fields have to match exactly the way your business formation documentation from your government is, because if it doesn't, it will fail. And the way that they look at opt in, opt out, and additional information, it just has a much higher scrutiny. My guess is because it does offer higher throughput, and to kind of access that higher throughput, you have to, provide more detailed information that is just, again, scrutinized to a higher degree by the phone carriers. For most of the folks who are listening, my bet is that you want to register as a sole proprietor. Um, for example, you may have an EIN and are in network marketing or direct sales, but it's just you. You're a single person sending messages about your network marketing direct sales business. I would probably suggest you register as a sole prop. Simple process. You will have to do a mobile phone verification at the end of the process. I'll walk you through that, but it'll be the simplest path for you to get registered. So I'm going to click and then this last thing is, if you are listening to this call and you're a company and you have multiple accounts. So we have customers that have 50, 100 different accounts. If you're that type of customer, you'll want to email us at support, and we'll give you guidance through support on kind of that process. So I'm going to click sole proprietor. When I go to sole proprietor, it's going to ask me for things like first name, last name, street. This is all your personal information. So remember, the TCR exists to know who is sending messages, why they're sending messages. So if you're a sole proprietor, I'm Jake, and I send messages as a consultant for Acme Unicorn. They want to know who I am. I am the sender. So I'm going to fill out this information with my first name, my last name, my email address. I'm going to pause here for a second. When all of this data is sent to the TCR, a lot of it is validated by third-party systems, not Project Broadcast. We're taking your email and all this information, we're sending it to them. They're validating that it's not a scammer or a fraudster, but it's not perfect. So if you use an email address that is valid, it's your email address. I've seen this happen already. We've had recently, actually, a person message us, and they've had the same email for 32 years, and it keeps coming back that their email is invalid. Well, if that is the case, our suggestion is go get a Gmail account and use that email address. This email address is used to store with your registration information in the TCR. The other option is, we could file a ticket with the TCR. Our concern in doing that is, if they don't respond in time, because so many companies are registering, their users right now, we don't want to impact your ability to send messages. So, if they take too long to respond, that could, go past the August 31st deadline, and, that would impact your message sending ability. So our suggestion here is, if you get an email if you get an alert back that your email is invalid or it's an unreachable destination, I can't remember what the exact error messages are. Our suggestion would be to go sign up for a new Gmail account and then use that Gmail address. Street name and number. I've actually got this question a number of times. This is just a placeholder. With the 123 Project Broadcast Road is not a real address. It's just us putting a placeholder there, just like intercity, or if first name wasn't here, it says enter your first name. So yes, you want to enter in your personal street address here, city, state, and postal code. So let me just I'm going to put some bogus stuff in here for now. I'm not going to actually submit this form. Whatever, we'll be in Dallas. So I've got all these fields filled out. I'm going to continue and go to the next screen. Now, this is a screen that's, brought a lot of questions, and let's just kind of walk through what this is. Remember, TCR exists to know who you are and why and what you're sending. That is the purpose of this third-party entity that the carriers have brought into the ecosystem. So describing your business is just you describing who you are and what you're sending messages about. We have provided common descriptions for different markets that we serve. Now, you may be in a market that we don't have listed in here as an example. You would use custom. We tried to look at our user base and say, hey, what are the different types of industries that are using Project Broadcast, like churches and gyms and people in healthcare, network marketing, direct sales? It's just a starting point. So let's pretend you're in network marketing, direct sales, social selling. If you click that description, it gives you a place to start. So I'm a consultant for business name. Well, for me, I work, I'm a consultant for Acme Unicorn, and I plan to send messages to my team and my clients to inform them of upcoming events and promotions. That's pretty accurate. That's what I would be doing if I were in network marketing direct sales, right? I'm going to send messages to my team. I'm going to send messages to my clients. Maybe use a different word here. Maybe you call them customers, to inform them of upcoming events and promotions. So it's really just choose something that is most similar to what industry you serve, and then modify the text. Now, again, if you're not one of these industries, pick custom and write your own description for what you're using Project Broadcast for. Maybe you're using Project Broadcast for a cool use case that we just don't have listed here. Like I know, for example, we have horse breeders and snowboard parks that use Project Broadcast, but we didn't put that in here as an example because it's not like we have thousands of uh, snowboard parks that use Project Broadcast. Describe contact opt-in. I've gotten a question a lot about this. You have to understand consent has always been required, right? This isn't new. The idea that a contact has given you consent to send them a text message has always been part of the texting ecosystem. What this is here for is for you to describe how you receive opt-in from the contacts that you're messaging. For example, if you are just uploading a list of contacts and just blasting them a text message, that is not opt-in unless you have received opt-in from some external source. Like, let's just pretend you have a website, people go to your website, they fill out a form to get text messages from you, and that's the list you're uploading. Then you would explain that in your opt-in summary. Now, some of you use the built-in Project Broadcast double opt-in feature where we manage all of that double opt-in consent for you. If you're a user that has double opt-in turned on in Project Broadcast, and some of you do, some of you don't, you can just select that as your opt-in summary, because we basically explain how opt-in works using the Project Broadcast double opt-in feature set. Now, if you don't use the Project Broadcast double opt-in feature set, then you want to talk about how you get consent. We have a general consent option here that gives you a starting point to describe how you receive consent from people that you're texting. You'll want to select one of these or write something custom. It's really important in all of these. You take this very seriously and you are thorough and complete in your answers and provide as much information as you can that it describes your business, your opt in strategy, your messaging samples. So pick the one that best suits you. If you do collect opt-ins via a web form, and we have this as a specific option here because we want to educate people that what we are seeing is that if you say you collect opt-ins through a web form, you must provide an example or the specific form link. You must provide a privacy policy, and you must provide a terms link. And that's, again, not a requirement of Project Broadcast. It's a requirement of the TCR that if you collect opt-ins via a form, they are looking for this information. I don't remember if this is as scrutinized on sole prop as it is on on private company, but I do know for sure on private company, if you are collecting through web form, you definitely have to have those or it will get rejected. So for most people that are probably listening today, you're going to look at general consent, and general consent gives you really some examples that we know about that people get their opt-in from. I would most likely look at general consent and then tweak the general consent one to your specific use case. Messaging samples. For every person that registers with a TCR, they want to know who you are and what you're sending. And messages sample are example messages that we have to submit as a part of the registration for your account to show the flavor of messaging that you're sending. So if you look in the select a template, these are just examples. Um, if you are, for example, a influencer that is always sending like inspirational tips to a big audience, well, maybe you choose inspirational tip and you may tweak this to fit your voice. Or if you're in network marketing and direct sales, and maybe you're kind of in a party plan um, business model, well, an event is really just a party. So if you look at the event registration, it's similar to the thank you message you may send for someone registering for a party. Or if you're doing host coaching, that's really similar to like event planning. And if you just click through these and read through them, they're all editable. So you can modify any of these examples. These are just here to give you an idea of what the messages need to look like. Um, and you can modify them before submitting your submission. It is important that you pick sample messages do represent the type of messaging that you're sending. So I'm just going to pick birthday. I like to send birthday messages, and I'm going to pick e-commerce sale because I'm always sending messages to my customers with percent off and BOGO offers. And again, if you're in, for example, network marketing, direct sales, or type of e-commerce, you sell necklaces on Etsy, e-commerce sales probably one you want to use because it's kind of our sample that basically is I got a sale. Here's the details of the sale. And some information on how to opt out. Speaking of opt out, we've seen a number of questions from people saying, hey, I see in all the example messages, there's opt out language. I don't use opt out language. Do I need to? Yes, of course you do. You're sending commercial messaging. Now, when you are in conversation with someone, one to one, back and forth, not a broadcast, not a keyword reply, not a campaign, but a one to one conversation, of course you don't need to use opt out language. But if you're going to schedule a broadcast to 100 people about a sale, you really should include opt out language in that message. So our example messages all have opt out in them because we want to show to the TCR that we are providing opt out language in our messaging that we're going to be sending to our customers. In the mobile verification step, as a part of registering as a sole proprietor, you have to provide your personal mobile phone number. This is not your project broadcast number. It is not a Google Voice number. It's not your landline home phone. It is your personal cell phone number. When you enter in this personal cell phone number and click submit, I'm not going to do this because I want to maybe go back and forth to show you guys some stuff. And this is all kind of bogus information, but you put in your actual cell phone number here. And when you click submit, you are going to get a text message from the campaign registry. And in order to complete the registration process, you're going to need to respond yes to that text message. And that will put your registration in a pending status. So when your registration is in a pending status, well, what does that mean? It means that we've collected all the information, we've submitted it to the campaign registry. As you can imagine, there are literally thousands, if not honestly millions of numbers that are currently being registered through all the providers to beat this August 31st deadline. So it takes a little bit of time to get that, either approved or rejected. We do not have a notification mechanism in Project Broadcast today to let you know if it succeeded or failed, and that is intentional. We knew that when we unlocked kind of the floodgates for people to go through this registration process, there were going to be some hiccups along the way. So your team at Project Broadcast has been fixing and modifying and tweaking this process literally nonstop for the last 3 days. As we kind of, I would say, mature that over the coming days, we will provide a notification through Project Broadcast on whether it failed or succeeded, but you don't have that today. So what you're going to want to do is once you submit, and again, I'm only not submitting because I don't want to submit this fake information. Put in your personal phone number, click submit. You'll get a text message from the TCR. You'll want to respond yes to that message to complete the registration. That's not the approval. It's just to complete the registration. And then it goes into a pending status. So what you'll find is that when you log in, down here, it is going to say registration pending. Now, again, because you're already a Project Broadcast user, we have not gotten to the August 31st deadline date yet. You're still going to be able to send messages. Um, Now, if you wait on this process, it's possible it's going to be pending past August 31st and your messages won't be sending. So, our advice, get this process done as soon as possible. Gives you the most amount of time to make sure your registration is approved. And when your registration is approved, you're done. Now, if you hop into this registration process, my opinion, I'll say it's my opinion, is it's really a less than a 10-minute process for a sole proprietor. You want to make sure you put in your personal information, your personal street address, your personal phone number, talk about who you are and why you're sending messages in that business description. Make sure to provide good sample messages that are representative of the messages that you're going to be sending or are already sending through Project Broadcast, and do that mobile phone verification step, and you're done. You're in a pending status. And I believe we've already had well over 1,000 people not only go through the process in the last 2.5 days, but are already approved. So go through the process. It should be fairly painless. It'll show registration pending here. Now, what happens if it fails? So it is possible that for whatever reason, your registration comes back as failed. And what we're finding is it is a number of things, and some of it is frankly not your fault. This process is new, or not new, but it has changed, and those changes are causing some registrations to fail when they shouldn't. And when they fail, if you come in here and see that registration failed, it's going to tell you to reach out to support. Send us an email, support@projectbroadcast.com. We'll help you resolve whatever the issue is that caused the failure. And as a part of that, um, your registration will get resubmitted so that it gets put back in queue, back into a pending status. And hopefully, whatever the issue was that caused it to fail will be resolved. Okay. Let's go through the private company example real quick. Private company is slightly different than sole prop. Now, again, I just want to reiterate, if you're a single owner business, again, I'm saying you're a landscaper, you, again, sell necklaces on Etsy, you're in network marketing, direct sales, most likely you're going to want to register as a sole proprietor. However, if you are a private company, you do have an EIN, you do want to unlock higher throughput, that's when you're going to select private company. And again, I just want to reiterate, selecting private company does require additional scrutiny. So you want to be extremely careful, thoughtful, thorough when filling out the private company version of this. Now, the first thing we ask you is, do you have multiple Project Broadcast accounts? So if you're a private company and you have, again, we have customers with 50, 100 different accounts, you're not going to be able to go through this process, which is why it tells you if you're a private company with multiple Project Broadcast accounts, you have to email support. We handle that type of registration manually with our support team. Similar information, country of registration, company name. Again, in a private company, this must be the exact name as it shows on your government documentation with your business registration. So in the US, you have an EIN. Let's say you're an LLC. You have to put the exact name of the LLC here. You have to put the exact EIN as shown on your documentation. If you are in Canada, this field will say business number, but it's the same kind of concept, right? It is a number specific to your business. Your contact email is, whatever the email is for your business. Again, we have seen some campaigns come back rejected because the third party, whoever, validator says it's an invalid email address or it's a non-deliverable email or something. We know that that's an issue. Unfortunately, it's not Project Broadcast throwing that error. It's the TCR system throwing that error. Our suggestion is try a different email address. Again, we can open a ticket if that happens for you, but I don't want to, for your sake, I just don't want that to cause your registration to be delayed. So because of that, honestly, I would probably, use a different email address. Street name and number. The address that you provide here, again, must match the address on your government documentation for your business. If it doesn't, the registration will be rejected. I promise. The business name, the EIN, and the address information must match exactly the government documentation. Business phone number you'll put in here. Just putting dummy data in here so I can go to the next screen. Oh, well, it's going to want everything, isn't it? Was that 9? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Yeah. Similar information. Now, you may be a private company, whatever, Jake Dempsey LLC, but maybe that's a bad example. Water Bottle LLC. But when you message people, you really message them as Jake Dempsey. The display name is just when you are messaging people, how do you identify yourself? Well, like with me, it's, Jake with Project Broadcast. That's how I identify myself when I'm messaging people. Describe your business. Again, we give you examples here for you to start from. This is just like the sole prop workflow. Pick one of these as the starting point, modify it to your needs. Make sure to be thorough here on who you are and what your business is. Describe opt-in. Opt-in is the same in terms of what you get in terms of the examples. Again, if you do get opt-in via a web form, especially when registering as a private company, if you do not provide these 3 links, it will get rejected 100%. So if you collect opt-in via a web form, make sure you have these 3 things. Now, you may say, Jake, I don't actually have these. Get them before you submit. We worked with someone recently. They ran Facebook ads. Facebook ads went to online kind of funnel form for someone to fill out to get more information about their product. So they had the link to the form, but they didn't have a privacy policy, didn't have a terms link, and that campaign was rejected. So they had to put up a privacy policy, put up a terms, link that in their form. They resubmitted their campaign, and it was approved. So we know for sure if these 3 things don't exist, if you're collecting opt-in via web form, it will get rejected. Again, you've got the same kind of general consent option here. You can start with general consent, modify it to your liking. But if you're specifically collecting via a web form, you want to make sure to have those links. Sample messages are exactly the same. You pick, one that is most like what you're sending messages for. They're just a starting point. It's just examples. Now, again, if none of these match the type of messaging that you're sending to your customers, just use custom, write a sample message that is representative of the messaging you're going to send to your contacts in sample message 1 and sample message 2. And then when you're done with that, you'll click submit. There is no mobile phone verification step in the standard brand, in the private company type registration. The primary thing that's looked at in private company registration is business name, EIN, street address. All of that has to match exactly. That's the big indicator for that getting rejected, as well as we have seen opt-in. We've seen a lot of private companies get rejected because they are not thorough enough in explaining how they get opt-in. And if they get opt-in via something like a web form, an example of that web form, a link to the privacy, and a link to the terms. That's the other common thing that we've seen people get rejected for. So I'm going to pop back here, and I've got a list of things. I just want to make sure I've gone through in my list in terms of questions I wanted to make sure we got answered. We've talked about why you have to register, what the TCR is. You know about the August 31st deadline, that you must get this completed and approved, not just completed, but you have to fill out the information. It has to be approved before the August 31st deadline to prevent your messages from being blocked. Some people have asked, why am I seeing registration and my friends aren't? It's probably because they're using the old version of Project Broadcast, or they just haven't updated their mobile app. If you don't get approved, again, send us an email at support@projectbroadcast.com. You'll know if you didn't get approved by that banner in the bottom of the screen. It would say registration failed. If you make a mistake, can you go back and fix it? No, but if you made a mistake and it fails, then we have to go through the process of helping you resubmit it. So hopefully you understand the difference between sole prop and private company selection. Again, if you're a single individual business owner, a consultant for a company, a salesperson, you mow lawns, you sell necklaces on Etsy, you're a single individual person or business, most likely you want to do sole prop. If you have an EIN and you want the higher throughput and you're okay going through the higher level of scrutiny, you can opt to register as a private company. Again, as we've said before, higher scrutiny, must have an EIN. Make sure you're very thorough in how you go through the process of filling out the form. Sole prop mobile verification process, you must use your personal phone number. I've seen people say it's not accepting my phone number and they're trying to use a Google Voice number. I've seen people put a Project Broadcast phone number in that field. It is your personal mobile phone number. And the whole point of that is the carriers want to know who is sending messages. So when you put in your personal mobile phone number, the TCR sends you a text message. You have to respond yes, so they know that the phone numbers that's associated with that registration is a real person. Okay, that's the point of it. The samples, I think they're called select a template in the UI. They're just examples. Use them as a starting point for selecting your business description, your opt-in information, your sample messages. We did that to kind of help you and guide you through the process so that you're not just seeing sample message one with no insight into what that kind of needs to look like. So they're examples. They're places to get you started. If you get the invalid email error, again, we apologize. There's not anything that we can do about it. It's not our system throwing that error. Our suggestion, use a different email address. If we do open a ticket with a TCR, which we're happy to do if you really want us to, our concern there is not getting back really a resolution in time for you. And we don't want to, hinder your messaging because of that. You now understand the throughput differences. 15 messages per minute on sole proprietor, 50 messages per minute on private company. There's nothing you need to do in Project Broadcast in terms of throughput. We have always managed that throughput for you. There have always been rules on how fast your messages can be released into the telephone network, and we've always managed that for you. So if you've got to schedule a message to 1,000 people, you still do it the same way you always have. And on our side, our technology will make sure that that message is sent to those 1,000 people with the throughput that you're allowed to have based on your registration. Again, we don't have notifications at this time. We will be adding those shortly. We haven't, again, purposefully, as people start the process, we've been making tweaks, modifying the form, trying to adjust things as fast as we can to, again, make it even more streamlined for you. And as those things are worked out, we'll add notifications so that you get a message from the Project Broadcast support user when your registration is successful or if it fails. Hopefully, you know a little bit more about opt in and opt out as well. Again, opt in is not new. Consent is not new. You've always had to have consent when messaging people. What this registration does is it makes you explain how you get opt in. The example messages have opt out language because if you are sending a commercial message, again, I've got a sale, I want to send that sale to 100 people. I should have opt out language in that sale message because it is a mass message that is commercial in nature. If I am one-on-one conversation with a customer or a prospect just through the Project Broadcast chat, of course you don't have to use opt out in that use case because you're just having a conversation. But a mass message specifically that is commercial in nature should include opt out language. And now you know what to do. If it's pending, you can still use Project Broadcast. Before August 31st, your messages will have no interruption. They'll continue to send. After August 31st, the unregistered traffic, meaning you've maybe not even registered at all, or you've been registered and it's pending, those messages will begin to be blocked. But again, if you go through that process as soon as possible, we are seeing people get approved literally within hours. I don't know how that's going to change as everyone kind of rushes, again, not just at Project Broadcast, at all companies, how that, timing may change. So, my suggestion is to access Project Broadcast, get that registration done as soon as possible, get it in a pending status so that you've got ample time for it to get approved and it doesn't interfere with any of your messaging. I am going to take a quick peek, if possible. I don't even know how to do this, so this is going to be interesting. Let's see here. Can I see the comments? I don't think I can, but our team. Oh, I do see comments. All right, cool. I think our team has been going through and answering questions for you. I'll take a few minutes and go after this. And if you have a question, please post it as a comment on the Facebook post or YouTube stream, and we'll go in there and answer those for you. But I'm hopeful that this has actually helped you. I apologize, it's been a 40-minute video, but my hope is that this really gives you, enough information to tell you why you're doing it and is it required? Yes, how to do it, and what decisions to make along the way. And again, if you have any questions about this video in particular, ask it in the comments. And you guys know we're always available at support@projectbroadcast.com to help you through this process. And we're actually excited, to be honest, about the registration process, because the promise of registration is that as the carriers have a much higher confidence in who is sending messages and what they're sending messages about, things like getting blocked for spam for unnecessary reasons, the idea is that that begins to go down. And you have to understand the whole point of this is to make sure that people sending messages on commercial networks, they're called, are not scammers and they're not fraudsters. And you guys have probably seen this yourself. You've gotten a text message that's like a phishing, phishing, saying your Netflix password has expired and to click this link because they're trying to get your username and password. They're trying to fish for your information. Or you get a scam text messages. And I don't want that as a consumer. You don't want that as a consumer. This process is to help aid in reducing that. So is it going to be bumpy for a little bit as everyone gets registered and we figure out, what changes might be on the horizon for registration? Sure. But it's going to help the ecosystem at large. And, it's going to help us as consumers make sure we get the messages that we want from the people that we want, and we're not getting them from people that we don't want. That's really the goal of this. So hopefully this has been helpful. Appreciate you taking the time to sit with me today and go through this. And again, if you have questions, ask them on the live, or shoot us an email at support@projectbroadcast.com, and we'll do our best to help. Thanks so much, guys, and appreciate you.